Hello and welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm. I'm your host, Roger Knecht, president of Universal Accounting Center. It's my honor and privilege each and every week to have these episodes come online to actually help us work on our business. It's here where we hear from the experts, the various things that we need to be doing as we work on our business, helping us focus on the things that matter most, ranging from marketing, selling, client relations, staff training, mental health, client onboarding, just a variety of things that we need to be aware of as we're working to build the premier accounting firm in our area. In addition to doing all this, we want to make sure that we're offering quality accounting services and clearly getting paid what we're worth. So for that reason, I have on the show experts, various individuals that are here to actually help us understand what it is we can be doing to be more intentional and deliberate with the things that we're working on. And today's going to be a wonderful guest. It's Gaynor Meilke. She is actually a business strategist and certified business and transformational coach. She owns Charisma Inc. It is basically here that she offers marketing and B2B consulting as a firm that specializes in services for accounting and tax professionals. She is also a ghostwriter and the author of multiple books, including Avoiding Apathy, Your Step-by-Step Guide to Winning More Sales and Customer Advocates in the Accounting Channel, The Bank Your Brain Blueprint, and The Marketing Ownership Method, which is available on Amazon. So with all that, Gaynor, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Roger.
This is going to be a lot of fun. So we were just together a few weeks ago at GrowCon. You gave an amazing presentation there, had wonderful feedback from the audience and everything. So I'm just really excited to dive even deeper into what it was that you shared there. And more importantly, get a little bit more of your expertise as it relates to marketing and selling. You know, working with accounting professionals is a joy of mine. You clearly got into this. So I want to back up a little bit and give some context as to how you became this business strategist and transformational coach.
Yeah, well, actually, thanks for that question, because a lot of times people they focus on the marketing aspect of what we do. And it's really, I worked in corporate marketing, mostly B2B for, quite a long time in my career, but I always knew that I wanted to have my own business and help other businesses grow. And as I started my business, it was almost 12 years ago now. I went out on my own, and I had worked in tech. I'd worked in agencies. I had worked in finance and also in the accounting profession too. I realized I loved the B2B aspect of business, decided to go down that route. And I had worked at Thomson Reuters in my career in the tax and accounting space. And so I started getting clients in tax and accounting firms and just really meshed with them being entrepreneurs and also them helping their small businesses. And that's really how I came to just love tax and accounting professionals. But my background was PR and marketing. But as I worked with a lot of clients, I realized that they were getting stuck more from the kind of mindset side of things and operational side. So that's when I got into the coaching more so. So that's definitely something I think every entrepreneur struggles with at times too, is both mindset and just operations.
Well, I want to get into both of these, and I appreciate your background because I think a lot of my listeners have their own stories as to why they start their business. And I think it's always fascinating to kind of understand what is that impetus that leads us to that. But you bring up two great things. It's the mindset and the operational side of business that really needs a lot of attention. Let's talk about mindset for a moment. When you're working with your clients, what is it about mindset that you find you need to address or that they're struggling with?
Well, I think one is just overwhelm, because when you're running a business, obviously there's multiple hats that you're wearing. And especially with a lot of tax accounting and bookkeeping firms, they're often small. So they're small businesses. I mean, there are larger firms, but that also creates its own complexities with matrix organizations or things like that. I just find that people they put a lot of pressure on themselves, especially accounting professionals, because they want everything to be done well and perfectly. There's a lot riding on that trust factor with their clients.
Exactly.
And so that creates internal pressure, And, oftentimes it's hard to find the right resources to be able to get the right help. And it just all kind of compounds into sometimes, there can be mental health issues, or, people just not performing at their, top performance. And so then they're, down on themselves. So it creates kind of a doom loop. And so we try to break people out of this doom loop and provide them with some alternative ways of looking at things. And then, we've worked in this profession for a long time, so we have a lot of resources that we can kind of connect people with.
I'm really grateful that we're starting with this, because in my interactions with my clients, I, like you, find that there is a good deal of conversation spent around mental health. There are deadlines. In many ways, they see that the services they're offering are associated with them, their name, who they are. And so there's that responsibility that that's weighing on them. Imposter syndrome may creep into this of, what right do I have to do this kind of thing? And these clients are doing so well. How am I, struggling as a business? There's a variety of things where, from a self-help point of view, you're self-sabotaging with a lot of these negative things that are going on in the mind. And so coping becomes a very big part of running the business. How do you just cope with all the challenges and stresses that you're dealing with as an entrepreneur, is what I say. So I'm really grateful that we're bringing this to the surface to begin with. So do you have any, you said you have resources and things that you would provide to your clients. Do you have any advice just right now that we might be able to share with my listeners as it relates to mental health?
Yeah. Well, I think one, if you're really struggling, you need to get professional help. I think there's also definitely, it's gotten better because people are talking more about mental health, but there's definitely still a stigma. And I think some people have a, hesitation to talk about it. But, if it's impacting, your family, your business, one, get professional help if you need it. There's, you can go online and find resources, or ask your, healthcare provider as well. So I would say that's number one, because oftentimes when people are struggling, they tend to internalize it, and then they're not getting some of the things that are most beneficial. And that's, the research has shown this is also a sense of community and collaboration. So you're feeling like you're not alone. Whereas sometimes when you get into anxiety and depression, you tend to self-isolate. So, being able, like your event, GrowCon, and, getting out into the community, and whether that's, finding communities online, or somebody else who's, doing the same thing as you, or maybe it's somebody else who's not doing the same thing as you, who can offer you like perspective, and the sounding board can be really helpful. And then also, and I should take my own advice, but, finding, enjoyable ways to spend your time outside of the office too, right? Like not making your work your entire life, which, you see people do that too. So it's about balance. It's about, getting the exercise, all of those things. But I think the biggest thing is kind of not being afraid to admit that maybe you need some assistance, and then finding people who can help you as well.
I think in our society, just part of our culture, the question of how are you doing today is just seen as a passing phrase that was really not meant to ask what it's saying. When in reality, I think we do need to, when asking it, mean it. And when we're responding, rather than just saying, okay, good, we need to be a little bit more intentional about, right now, things are a little tough, or right now,
Yeah.
today's a little, I'm dealing with some issues. Because I think genuinely people are willing to listen and hear. And honestly, I think there's a good deal of help that can come from us just being open and vulnerable with some of those people that are in our lives, friend, family, and so forth. So I like that you brought up that there is a stigma, and we need to address that stigma. It's fine to, not even fine, it's encouraged that we actually work with professionals that can enable us to have a happier, healthier life. And so I'm glad that we're at least addressing this. And I would agree with everything you say, in the sense that we need to more intentionally be mindful of our mental health and our emotional health. So that's very good. You also, go ahead.
I was just going to say one other like last point, which I'm actually like kind of passionate about myself, is just I think as a not just in the accounting profession, but in the business world,
Uh-huh.
there's a real tendency to try to take the humanity out of things.
Interesting.
And so it's, at the end of the day, we're all human. So I just say, like, cut each other some slack, you know, really. And I don't mean that as like, oh, it doesn't matter what happens. I just mean, do you need to go into the meeting and like be adversarial? Like, can you bring up your points in a different way? Because I do see that, with some of the clients that I work with, not and when I say that, I just mean like for them, they might have self-defeating behaviors. Like we all have things that we need to work on, but I've had clients who can't even deal with their clients. They have to get somebody else in between them because they say they're not good at with people, and it's
Mhm.
like oftentimes tied to like some personality things. So I would just say everybody's struggling with something. So just be show up as a human and try to find ways to make have uncomfortable conversations in productive ways.
It's a two-way street. I think that there's something to be said about self-worth. We need to have our own self-worth,
Right.
and with self-worth, recognize that we do deserve respect, and we do deserve uh, basically that kindness that you're talking about as a human being, seeing one another as that. I would even go a step further and say that I think we need to see one another as children of God, is how far I would go with that.
Yeah.
But in addition to seeing ourselves as who we are, we likewise need to, like you're describing, see those that we're interacting with, whether they're our
Mhm.
clients, whether they're our employees. We need to cut them some slack in the sense that we need to be a little bit more patient and forgiving and understanding. And I think if we can get away from creating what some people see as hostile work environments, we can have more healthy work environments that people can thrive in. So I like how you've brought this kind of full circle, that it's personal. We've got to be mindful of our own needs, but it's also, especially when we're in leadership roles running companies, it's
Mhm.
where we have to be mindful of how we're interacting with our employees and our clients. Is that well said?
Yeah, definitely. And I would just say to your point, when people feel both seen and respected, and like what they contribute matter, they're going to contribute more and your business is going to do better. So have a I guess a longer term view on how you're treating people and setting up your business that way, because at the end of the day, it's we know in the accounting profession it's hard enough to get good resources from the human side, so we want to make sure that we have the culture that's going to help retain them as well. So,
Well, it's important that the people we interact with feel appreciated. They feel
mhm,
seen and heard, like you're pointing out. But
right.
I'd even go so far as to also say they need to understand how they fit into the equation as it
Yes.
relates to the business. What is their role and why does it matter? And when they can clearly see that they are contributors, that they
Mhm,
do make a difference in the business, whether it be internally or externally with clients, all of a sudden they have more self-worth as to why I'm here. I understand my role in the business and why I do matter here. So yeah, it's very important to be both appreciated and valued, and that's one of the things that contributes to that. This is wonderful. Let me transition into operations. You said
mhm.
after mindfulness, we also or mindset. You also said operations. That as business owners, we need to be more attentive to our operational needs. What would you say about that? I have some thoughts myself as well.
Mhm. Well, I think, you and I were talking a little bit before we started recording. Just, there's so many different aspects to a business. And I find that, when we are working with accounting leaders, oftentimes they're dominant in like one area. And then, they struggle in other areas instead of taking like that big picture view, and really strategic planning is what it comes down to. So it's, what is it that we're actually trying to achieve here in our financial goals and serving our clients, and then how do we need to structure the firm to achieve that, rather than kind of just focusing either on the area that you're really good at and letting everything else kind of slide, which can be very detrimental, or feeling overwhelmed that you can't get it all done instead of looking at some resource planning to figure it out. I would say that there's still a large percentage of firms that don't have a strategic plan.
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of day by day just trying to figure it out, and that the real negative side of that is, one, their business doesn't do as well as it should, but two, they're actually spending more time, money, and energy spinning their wheels instead of taking a step back and looking at what are business models that other firms are using that are being successful, and then kind of backtracking and implementing things. Even though it might take longer at the front end, it's going to help them in the long run. And it's sort of like, I just want to keep driving without stopping for gas or to look at a roadmap. Doesn't work that well, you know.
Well, I could definitely say from a workaholic point of view, which is something I'm owning about myself, I do find it hard and difficult to stop and get gas for my car, or to go to the restroom, or to eat a meal. It's just one of those things. I'm like, it's just a bother. I've got things I need to get done, and I like what I'm doing. So it's, why am I going to pull off and stop? And so, yeah, those things become kind of unnecessary distractions, but they're
Mhm.
life. I mean, I have to eat. I
Right.
have to, pull over and get gas. So yeah, very important. The thing that's also important to me when you brought up the term operations, in our business model, what we focus on is the production side of the business, and
Mhm.
emphasizing that it needs to be efficient
Mhm.
so that it can be profitable. And in order to be efficient so that we can be profitable, we need to have operational procedures, standard operating procedures, things that are processes in the organization that ensure consistency of the work, but more importantly, the ability to delegate the work. And so
Mhm.
often the business owners I work with, and this is very common, is you have so much in your own head as to how things are supposed to be done. You believe that only you can do it that way. Well, it's only that reason because you haven't documented clearly how to do it otherwise. And so it is you, it's in your head. So what we've got to do is go through this process of now documenting, recording those processes that you feel are essential to get the quality of work that you're hoping is delivered. Well, once we've documented it, we're able to then duplicate it, which is to say, now
Mhm.
have someone else do it. Well, once we get to the point that we're pleased with the duplication, they are getting the same results, they are doing it as we would like. Now we can delegate it to them. We can say, now you're responsible for this. This is something that you're going to take the lead on, and step away from it. And no longer is it only in our head. No longer is it only
Mhm.
something we can do, but operationally, it's something that's now being disseminated to other key individuals, and they can become the experts in those places. And honestly, they can ultimately do it better than we were doing it originally, because that is their sole focus oftentimes. So operationally, I think this is a key part of success, when you recognize that once you've got the work and you're providing the service, the more efficient you can do this, the more profitable you will be. What would you add to that?
Oh, I love that. It's, the whole idea of documenting processes so that people can then duplicate them. What I would add to it is that not enough firms are doing it. And,
Uh-huh.
if they're, I'm, I'm assuming that you probably have some resources that, people could tap into, like on that side
Mhm.
at, you know, Universal Accounting School. It's definitely a need. And, we've worked with firms who have, done their own kind of documentation. And then we do EOS work
Yeah.
with firms as well. So that's the
Uh-huh.
entrepreneurial operating system, which,
Yeah.
that really creates a good framework too. But it's the discipline, right? Just what you were saying is, it's easy to think only I can do this and it's faster, but it's not necessarily going to be faster when you're like burned out or you can't serve all your clients. So, then you're starting to lose clients. It's taking your foot off the gas and taking the time to document things. And so, again, I think that's a discipline. And you also have to know what is worth documenting. What do you need to delegate? And then who are you going to delegate it to?
Yes. Very good. Okay. So that brings me to, okay, we've got mental health mindset, we've got
Mhm.
operations. Let's talk about marketing and sales, because I know you have some thoughts as, or tips, let's say, that are effective for lead generation, particularly a lead gen site. So I'd like to first define what that lead gen website is for my audience, just so that they can understand maybe the concept of funnel marketing and so forth.
Mhm.
But then you say you have tips for effective funnels and such.
Yeah.
Let's define it and then let's talk about it.
Okay, sure. So when we talk about selling on a website, I'm not sure how much people are familiar with the term sales funnel, but if you think of a funnel, you've got the top of the funnel where it's kind of generalized information of value that people might find online when they Google search, and hopefully your company comes up, they land on your website, they're kind of looking at resources, they might fill out a form that takes them more to the middle of the funnel where they have a free consultation with you. And then as you're talking to them, you're moving them down to the bottom of the funnel, which is having the opportunity to sell them your services and then closing the sale. So that's kind of the three stages of the funnel. What I find many firms struggle with is really the top of the funnel
Mm-hmm.
to the middle of the funnel. And once they get in front of the right clients, the ideal client profile people, they have no problem selling their services if they have kind of like the right story and the packages in place. But it's one, I would say, identifying who your ideal client is. We don't want to just be trying to get everybody. If we have a very specific target in mind that we want to serve, then we need to understand where we're going to find them and how we're going to get their attention and then bring them to where we are.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that piece of it, knowing who you're trying to target. And then also from a lead gen standpoint is understanding that not everybody is going to respond in the same way. And I find that's like a really important piece of the puzzle, because even though you might have another firm that's really successful doing TikTok videos, your clients may not respond to that. You need to really define your marketing strategy by who you're trying to attract
Mm-hmm.
and what services you want to offer, not just, well, everybody's doing X, Y, and Z, so I'm going to do it and then wonder why it's not working for me.
That's true. That's true. You've
Yes.
definitely got to have an all-in kind of mentality. Not, I'm just going to dabble in something because I see someone else is also over there. That's very important. Your explanation of what the funnel is, I appreciate, because not so many people are familiar with it, especially from an accounting point of view. It's not
Mhm.
our go-to marketing strategy, and it's for some very foreign or new. So the explanation of the funnel is, I think, key. The fact that the top of the funnel is kind of the catch-all basin. It's like you're
Mhm.
trying to capture this liquid that's falling from the sky. Well, do you want to stand here or do you want to stand over here to get that rain? And the beauty of it is to understand your ideal client. Where is it that you want people to be coming in from? And that's your different marketing strategies. You brought up, obviously, searches online, but there's advertising that can be done that can be
Yeah.
targeted towards specific audiences to funnel them into that top of the funnel.
Yeah.
But then you're right. Once they get in, one of the big goals is to now capture their contact information. What is it that you can offer in exchange for them to provide their name, phone number, and email? And the reason for this is because we're wanting them to self-identify. We want them to raise their hand and say, hey, what you're offering is kind of intriguing. It's interesting.
Mhm.
It may actually apply to me. So I want to actually exchange for a white paper or a free resource, a free assessment or something, my name and information. Now, if you can sell something, all the better. But the point is, though, is we want that contact information, because now once we have it, they're identified, they're in our CRM. We can now market to them in perpetuity. And now we're no longer dependent upon our advertising or some
Mhm.
source to actually be able to put our information in front of them. We can do that through an email, through a text, through a phone call. And that's very important. But then that leads to, now that I've got their contact information, what do I do next? And that's the sales cycle. That's obviously then the
Mhm.
messaging that we're going to be doing to educate them and hopefully have them see us as the expert. So you have some tips. What tips would you
Mhm.
have?
Yeah. So I would also just back up for a moment on the accounting sales cycle for
Mm-hmm.
clients tends to be longer,
Uh-huh.
I would say. I mean, I always say to clients, if they're if they're just getting started with, marketing, would you really want a client who's going to drop their accountant if they're already working with one based on getting one email? I hope not. You want people who are looking exactly for the type of, services that you're providing, and that also aligns with your values and who your ideal client is. It's not just, I think there's a mindset shift too with accountants in like two dimensions. One being, um, they need to start thinking more along the same mindset as their clients. It's not about your firm. I call it wheezing when we're talking about we do all of
Okay.
these things. It's like it should be using, like, you know, you are looking for, financial clarity in your business. What is the client looking for? And you need to couch your sales pitch in that, benefit oriented way for your client, as opposed to just telling them what you do, because they actually don't necessarily care what you do on a day-to-day basis. What they care is the results that they're going to get from you doing whatever you're doing behind the scenes. So there's one, thinking about the client perspective from a sales perspective, but then also it's not one and done. Like, you're probably going to have to hit your ideal client. The research is showing now like 12 times is not unusual before you get somebody to move, especially in like B2B marketing.
Uh-huh.
So when we think about the sales funnel, we can attract people to your firm, but then there's going to be a series of, communication and touch point that's going to have to happen before they even raise their hand and you have the opportunity to speak to them. So you need to have some level of patience, but also a level of measurement and evaluation on what works and what doesn't. So, I see a blind spot in a lot of firms when it comes to trying to get more clients is they're not even asking their existing clients what they like.
Yeah.
So if you do some, and that's good for retaining clients as well. If you get some existing client feedback of the clients that you actually like working with, understand what value you're actually providing to them. Then when you're doing your marketing and your, selling, you will know exactly what points to hit, because the people who are already doing business with you that are your ideal clients, you want more of those. So do what works with those people, as opposed to just, hoping that you're going to find the right people out there. And, we're kind of talking more on kind of like the lead generation online side, but I would still say that in the accounting profession and B2B in general, getting in front of your audience, whether it's through like the associations that they belong to or conferences that they go to, what are their communities that you can go and provide value in so that they see you as the credible expert? You are going to get plenty of leads that way.
Yeah.
You can spend a lot of money on Google ads, and, if you do it right, it can be wonderful. But, if you're a smaller firm and you're looking for, say, some quick wins to get some traction, start getting into the communities where your ideal clients are.
Excellent advice. Excellent. And I would add to this, first of all, to help with the process of marketing and selling, I think it's hugely important for the accounting firm to identify what the lifetime value of a client is, so that you have some context as to what it is you're expecting to earn from that. But also, you need to know what your cost per acquisition is, because
Very
once you're comfortable with what the cost is, you're going to be more patient as you're spending time and money to get a new client. And if you're not clear as to what your lifetime value of the client is, nor the cost per acquisition, you may become very frustrated with the process, thinking, like you were saying, this is taking too long. This is too much work to get this client. Well, at the end of the day, if you knew that your client was going to be, say, $36,000, $40,000 over the duration of your relationship with them, if you understood that the cost to acquire them was $1,000, Would
Mhm.
you spend $1,000 to make $40,000? Well, of course you would. And so what we're wanting to do is be patient and more intentional and deliberate with this marketing strategy so that we can get the clients we deserve. Would you agree?
Oh, totally. And I would also say that, you know, accountants are obviously numbers people,
Mm-hmm.
but the whole marketing and sales side of things is an area where they really don't measure. And exactly to your point, when you can see that, you're spending X amount and that's translating into this type of business, you're going to very easily be able to identify what's working and what's not, and to cut the things that aren't. I mean, as much as we all talk about social media and that being, the place to be, if you it just depends on if your clients are there. If the clients that you want are there, and there's also, a community aspect to it as well. But, I see a lot of firms who are like, "Oh, I'm doing all this social media, I'm not getting anything out of it." And it's like, well, one, are you doing the right things there? And two, are the clients that you want
Mm-hmm.
looking for the information that would lead them to your firm on social media, right?
Yeah. No, this is great. In your bio, I mentioned that you're a ghostwriter.
Mhm.
Help my audience understand what ghostwriting is, and let's talk about that for a minute.
Sure. So ghostwriting is essentially writing for other people. So a lot of times you'll see celebrities who put out a biography or a book, and they'll, not everybody's a professional writer, so they will use a ghostwriter. It's the same with thought leaders. They'll often use a ghostwriter to help them, one, if they don't have time or bandwidth to do the work, but also, you know, some everybody has a different skill when it comes to communication. So for some people, they're really amazing at speaking. Some people are good at putting thoughts on paper, but not bringing them together into a cohesive story. So using a ghostwriter can help you, one, crystallize your thoughts, and then also you get do some of the heavy lifting for you as well. So if you ever wanted that book, you could hire a ghostwriter and they could help you with it.
I'm very familiar with ghostwriting. I've
Mhm.
not personally, well, no, I have to say I have personally experienced it. I don't know why I was thinking this. We have two books of four that we've written, and we involved a
Mhm.
ghostwriter for two of the four. And
Mhm.
basically, what it was is you've got a mind or an idea in your mind, but you just can't articulate it, put it down on paper. And like you were
Mhm.
explaining, the bandwidth becomes an issue. There's a good amount of time that it takes to write. And so a ghostwriter, a good one, is able to take the information because of interviews and questions that they're asking and more write it in a narrative form or in a
Mhm.
way that it's a little bit easier to digest in written form. And they can really put to paper what it is you're struggling to verbally communicate. And all of a sudden, voila, the ghostwriter with their skills and abilities has something now that makes sense that you can now publish. And it's a phenomenal experience and something that I'm sure a lot of my listeners are considering simply because they, after years of experience, have, I'm sure, great ideas or stories to share, or more importantly,
Mhm.
business principles that they'd like to take to the community. And what's
Mhm.
fascinating is with a ghostwriter, it's achievable because you can delegate it and at the end of the day, accomplish it because you've hired someone to do it. It's a
Yeah.
good experience. So I have a question regarding my listeners, those of them who are considering becoming making money as an influencer. I know you work
Mm.
with a lot of accounting firms, helping the business owner elevate themselves into that expert or authority sphere, kind of
Mhm.
becoming that influencer. Talk about that. What does that look like?
Well, I think it looks like different things for different people. And I know you mentioned off the top, I wrote a book specifically about this called The Bank Your Brain Blueprint. The
Yeah.
reason why I wrote it was basically to give people a business plan for, being a thought. I call it a thought. I have like different levels that I kind of put people in as far as their goals are for, being an influencer. Because I think
Okay.
influencer can have some negative connotations too. It's it's like, because especially in the accounting space, I mean, accountants are so knowledgeable and they have a lot of value to offer. So an influencer on TikTok selling, makeup is a little bit different than our influencers in the accounting profession. But really, it's about monetizing and sharing your professional knowledge. And when you think about, people are listening to you and I on this podcast, and we're influencing what people are thinking about and how they might approach things. I mean, that's really at the heart and soul of an influencer. And I always say to people that, the best thought leaders, educators, influencers, and guides, which are the 4 levels that I break it down into, are people who just want to help other people.
Yeah.
Because if you're just going after trying to get like sponsorships or money, it's going to be short-lived, because you have to be able to draw from kind of like a well of passion around it. Otherwise, it's what am I going to talk about next? Or, it's things that you're not really passionate about, and it takes a lot of energy, so that can drain you. But if you have something that you're really like super passionate about, that you wish, I always call it like the mountaintop moment. If you could shout from the mountaintop one thing that you wish everybody knew that like that's kind of the core of a great influencer story. So, there's a lot of different elements to it. I break it down into 8 elements in the book. And the first one is knowing what it is that you're trying to achieve by, speaking or educating people. And then, what assets do you have? What's your knowledge base? Who is your audience? Like, who's going to be interested in what you have to say? Because that's critical. You can't influence people if you don't have a following. And then, what are your opportunities for monetizing it? So that, whether that's being paid to speak, writing a book and selling it, or getting sponsorships. I mean, there's a lot of different things. You can monetize a YouTube channel. We have, clients who've done that really well. So that's, really in a nutshell, being an influencer in the B2B space is a lot different than being an influencer in the B2C, or that's business to consumer space.
Yeah. Yeah. I would add to this a few things that I think are very, very relevant. What comes to mind is Maslow's hierarchy of need. It's the top of the pyramid where you have what's called self-actualization. It's that belief that you have something now to give back to the community, and there's a legacy that you can have here. It's essentially recognizing that with your experience, with the things that you've now accomplished, you have something to teach and offer others. And there's that coach path, that influencer path, that mentor path that you ultimately can start to take, because you've experienced things in your life now that you're in a position that you can give back. And I think that's hugely important. And so whether you're trying to do it from a monetary point of view, whatever your motivations are, you're offering, especially in your book, a pathway to do that. You're giving steps to help people realize, what's my purpose? What am I really trying to accomplish here? Is there a monetizing or a monetary reason or thing that I want to accomplish? And then literally go forth and do it in an effective way. So I like that you've taken the time to write that down and provide it. And I'm personally eager to see what more I can do about the things I'm doing, as I'm trying to give back, as I'm trying to help the accounting community, and most importantly, inspire or influence them to have a voice within the services that they're providing to their clients. So this is something I'm excited to learn more about. I do want to ask regarding business resources. I know that you have a few ideas of things that accountants aren't using but should tap into. What are your thoughts on that?
Ghostwriting? No. I actually, to that point, and I'm, kind of say that jokingly, I think that accountants are underselling themselves. And that's definitely something in the accounting profession that if accountants can position themselves really as the business advisors they are. I mean, there's a statistic that I had seen, and I blanking on where I saw it. It was an e-commerce platform.
Okay.
And it was a white paper about what small businesses are looking for from their accountants. And it was basically over 60% of small businesses just want their accountants to tell them what they should do with their business. They're looking for that guidance. And I would say if you can marry the guidance that you can offer with a specific industry, then that's something that is going to like bode well. So I would say, for resources that accountants aren't tapping into, I mean, there's a multitude of things from technology to education, obviously. But did you have a specific track that you wanted me to talk about?
No, no, no. That was helpful. I liked how you started with ghostwriting. I really do think that is something that's helped our business, as we've actually written now 4 books. I did 2 with a ghostwriter, as I mentioned, and then I wrote 2 of my own. It was intended to be a single book, but it got so large that we broke it up into 2, and it was a phenomenal success. But it took a lot of time, much more time than I expected. It was a harder project than I expected, but at the end of the day, I'm very grateful that I've done it. So it was very good.
Actually, I did think of one other thing that I think is really important
Okay.
is from a resource perspective. I think collaborating with other firms is really important because that's something I actually do see happening a bit more where we've got, a firm that's offering, the CAS services, partnering with a purely tax firm. And so they can, instead of trying to be all things to all clients, they're collaborating in their areas of strength and having that complementary type of service approach and actually serving some of the same clients together. And so I would say that if you're a firm that's looking for more resources, you might want to think about partnering with other firms and then coming up with some kind of arrangement that works for both of you. I've seen that work really well, and I'm seeing more and more firms doing that. And then, of course, there's a wealth of resources in education communities like yours, and going to conferences. I also think fewer accountants do it than probably should because it really does open up a new network of people, and then also just opens up your mind into what's available out there.
Yeah. I really appreciate you bringing up the peer collaboration, because that's one of the
Mhm.
big things that at GrowCon, a lot of people speak of that being one of the big reasons why they love the event, is to go there
Mhm.
and meet other business owners who, whether they're offering bookkeeping, accounting, or tax services, they oftentimes have niches that they're in. And with those emphasis in industries, they may have something to offer clients that another firm is working with. And so it's interesting to see how those relationships build and the collaborations get to the point where they're actually ones that can be monetized. And now you're collaborating with another accounting firm across the country, servicing an industry. I mean, it's amazing the stories that can come that do come out of that. And because of Grogon, just the fact that you spoke there just a few weeks ago,
Mhm.
what would you say about the event for business owners? Is it something that they ought to attend, and why?
Oh, definitely. I mean, one for the collaboration, but to be honest, I was a GrowCon newbie. I was flattered to be asked to speak, and I loved it. I was actually I'm a business coach. I've written books on business strategy for firms and that and I actually it's rock solid. I love the whole approach, the map that you
Thank
lay
you.
out for people, and I just thought that you know for the people who were there in attendance, usually you go to a conference and you know there might be some sessions that you take or leave, but because there was one stage, you got to see everything, and everything was super valuable. Like there was nothing that was like, oh, they could have omitted this and I would have been okay. I really thought that it was top notch.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's a lot of time, energy, and love that goes into GrowCon. So
Yeah,
it's a
I
lot
could
to make
tell.
happen every year. So we're happy it's behind us, but we're very much involved
The
in our
next one.
planning for the next year. So it's very good. So here's what I'd like to do. I have one last question for you, and then we're going to wrap
Mhm,
this up. And I want to ask,
mhm.
what are you grateful for?
Oh man, I'm grateful for so many things. So usually I do like a top 5 with myself and my daughter, like every day I try to do that. So I would say 1, I'm always grateful for health and for, being able to get up and, do what I do every day, having that energy. 2, I'm thankful for everybody who I come into contact with and who is willing to, share part of their day with me or their business with me or, their personal time with me. Because I think, I love the connection with people. Three, I'm just so thankful, to be able to have a business that does what it does because it's, both, it helps me earn a living, but it's really rewarding to see how I can help other people. Um, it's a beautiful day in Michigan, so I'm super thankful for that. We don't get that many of them. And then, I'm also thankful for this opportunity. It's amazing. I've had the chance to get to know you and your team a little bit, and it's fabulous. I mean, I'm always so thankful for, meeting new people because I think that's where great opportunities come from.
That is beautiful. Well, thank you. And I love the mindset that you have in the sense that you're trying to recognize 5 things or more that you're grateful for. Going through life when you can see the abundance and the blessings, it's so much easier. And that attitude of gratitude is just such a blessing in the sense that it allows you to be more grateful for everything going on in your life. So I appreciate you sharing all that. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to kind of wrap things up here and very quickly want to invite the listeners before you move on is to take advantage of this offer. Basically, Gaynor has this free resource and strategy call for firm owners where you can actually learn things related to marketing and get some strategy as to your firm. And I want you to take advantage of it. So go to the episode description, and there you're going to find a link in order for you to actually take advantage of these resources and, more importantly, schedule a call with Gaynor so that you can work on your business. In addition to that, just because we brought up some topics related to lead generation and marketing, there are in the free resources some things that relate to automating your lead generation. It's a webinar where we actually speak of the funnel and just the concepts to introduce you to these principles so that you can see how they're applicable to your business and how you can actually leverage them in building your lists and then market them, what you can be doing to nurture these leads that you have so that as contacts, they become educated as to your services and, more importantly, see you as the expert. In addition, I've written a number of books, as I mentioned. And so if you'd like to check out those and see what it's like to write a book, I did put together a webinar where I explain the value of the books themselves as to how I utilize them and basically leverage them to get clients. And so if you're interested in those 2 webinars, I would encourage you to check those things out only because they are meant to actually assist you as you're working on your business. Now, as a summary of our conversation today, I thought there were a lot of things that were wonderful highlights. First and foremost, the fact that what she's done, Gaynor has basically identified, first of all, that there is a mindset that we need to have as we're running our businesses. Mindset is so critical, and we need to have a healthy mindset. And so that conversation at the beginning where we were just touching on those various things that are essential for us to be successful, very, very important. I think that as a mindset, we need to have something that's both self-focused. What are we doing to make sure that we have a healthy emotional mind as we're going about our daily activities and interactions with our employees and clients? But conversely, we need to be mindful of them and their needs and what it is they're expecting from their interactions with us. We talked about operations. I really feel that there's a lot to be said for we have great things that we're doing, but do we have processes built around them to ensure that they're done the same each time? And more importantly, enabling us to delegate them. And so I thought that was a great conversation as it enabled us to really dive into some of the things that really, at the end, make up the business. The other thing that was helpful is her explanation of funnels. I think it's very important that as an industry, we understand what is going on out there in the marketing world to help our clients with their marketing efforts and our own, because funnel marketing is a key part of what's seen online today, and it's something that is very effective. But are we using it to our advantage? Are we using it in our business to find those business owners, connect with them, and more importantly, nurture them to the point of becoming an engaged client with us? The other thing that we talked about is becoming an influencer, just basically realizing that there are things that we can do to give back and, more importantly, leverage those to become monetary. How can we actually take what our experience and expertise has afforded us and now monetize it so that we can now give back to the community and perhaps make a little bit more money as, in fact, influencers, as she mentioned. So that's something I'm excited to learn a little bit more about. And then lastly, this idea of, with regards to our businesses, just working a little bit more intentional and collaborating with our peers, attending GrowCon. Clearly, that's a thing I want to promote. but wonderful highlights from today's conversation. So Gaynor, what would be a closing thought from you?
I would say, instead of focusing on what you're not doing right in your firm, focus on the things that are working and then try to duplicate some of those. And I love what you said as well about being able to document means being able to duplicate. So that's definitely something to keep in mind.
Beautiful. Well, thank you. Well, everyone listening, first and foremost, if you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, I invite you to do so. Subscribe, because each and every week we have on the experts to help us work on our business to build, in fact, the premier accounting firm in our area. As you subscribe to the podcast, set your notifications so you're reminded of these episodes being released. And I invite you also to go to universalaccounting.com. There you'll find in the navigation the podcast section where we've actually collected a number of highlights or playlists that we've organized based on specific topics that you can go binge listen to. And I invite you to do so, whether it be marketing, selling, mental health, client onboarding, tech stats. There's just a variety of topics that we've collected over the years as we've done so many of these episodes that you'll want to actually go and binge listen to. In addition, I want to invite you to GrowCon. We've spoken of it today, and I want to invite you to GrowCon. It is a live event. It is for accounting professionals, individuals that own bookkeeping, accounting, and tax businesses, for them to come and work on their businesses. It's here that they can hear from the stage the experts, individuals like Gaynor, where we can basically learn things that we need to be doing to work on our business, and then at the same time meet with our peers, find what we can do to collaborate. And then lastly, the staff at Universal Accounting, those individuals that are committed to help you be in business for yourself, but not by yourself with Universal. All these are tools available to assist you, whether it be the podcast, the live event, GrowCon, each basically there to enable you to have the confidence to go forward and offer these services with confidence and competence. Now, lastly, what I want to do is invite you, if you'd like to discuss any of these principles, these concepts with Universal, give us a phone call. You can reach us at 801-265-3777, or you can visit us online at universalaccountingschool.com. So with that, take care, have a great day, and always remember, if it's about accounting, it is Universal. Be safe out there.